Hi, everybody. Thanks for joining. We're going to go ahead and begin. So we all live and die by numbers, and we deal with them every day. How many deals do I need to close to make more money? How many clients do I have right now? How much is my sales, my gross profit? How many more clients do I need to land? Numbers, numbers, numbers. It's all really a numbers game. And having a complete understanding of the numbers that drive your business. So today I want to focus on driving these numbers up through marketing right now. When I first was thinking about giving this webinar and an in-person presentation that I gave a few weeks ago, I thought about how many presentations that I listen to throughout the year and think, wow, that's really great information. But when I get back to my desk, I have no clue where to start. So the goal of my presentation today is not just to teach you what you should be doing, but actually how to get it done when you get back to your desk. So just a brief introduction. My name is Megan Braverman. I'm a Senior Account Manager with Berbay Marketing and Public Relations. We specialize in working with professional service businesses, and we do that by increasing visibility and ultimately fueling revenue growth for our clients. So I just want to start with a little bit of an introduction, sort of a preface. The first thing is, you know, it's all really about generating leads and filling your sales pipeline. What it comes down to is you want the leads that are going to bring you new clients. So the more leads that you can generate, the more opportunity there is for you to land your next deal or your next case. So today I'm going to talk about how to fill that sales pipeline and generate more leads. What is a lead, really quick to define it? A lead is a referral from a colleague or an inquiry from your website or maybe a former client referring you business. Basically, a lead is someone that's interested in your services. The other thing I want to mention is pearls of wisdom. What I'm going to talk about today is not rocket science or any new revelation that we've come up with. And some of you may already have done this before, but the competitive advantage comes with the small things, the small incremental things. So my goal is for you today is to find some pearls of wisdom in this presentation that you can take back with you and implement. The other thing is that we're always talking about is that there's no magic bullet. When it comes to marketing, you are playing the numbers, and there's no one best way. That's why we call it the marketing mix, and any Marketing 101 class will tell you that. It's a mix of tactics, and there's no formula to that mix. You need to see what works for you, and everybody's different. So when you're thinking about your marketing mix for the remainder of the year, look at what's worked and what hasn't. For example, we had, a client told us that they did an email campaign several years ago and didn't get any results from it. So they stopped doing it. Maybe it's time to pick that up again. Perhaps 5 years later, things can be different. Something that didn't work 5 years ago, but it's really time to try it again. Or maybe it wasn't executed properly. The other thing is you have to set realistic goals. You know, we never have enough time in the day. So regardless of what you do, you need to set achievable and realistic goals. And most of the time, if you're trying to do everything at one time, nothing gets done. So that's what, again, the presentation today is focused on, is how do you set those realistic goals so you can actually go back to your desk and achieve these. The last thing is, it's really about marketing is building a marketing machine. It's, again, generating leads and getting the phone to ring. As I said, there's no magic bullet, but it's about investing in enough marketing channels so that when there is a need, it's exponentially stronger that a prospect will think of you first because you've put this marketing machine in place. So what I'm going to go through today is I'm going to talk about 4 action items that you can do when you get back to your desk or when you're done with this webinar, and 4 marketing tips you can't live without. So the first action item is track and measure your marketing. I'm sure most of the attendees that are listening probably don't track on a piece of paper or on an Excel sheet where your leads are coming from. And this is often a very overlooked aspect of many businesses and many clients that we talk to. And it's really the foundation to any business to start determining what's working and what's not. And it allows you to redirect investment based on your measurement results. You may find that the majority of your leads are coming from former clients. So you need to invest more marketing to former clients, or maybe take them out to more lunches and dinners. But if you look at it from a revenue perspective, maybe your revenue generation is coming from the smallest portion of your leads, such as your website. So it's very, very important to track this. And also, keep in mind, there is a big difference between a marketing plan and a business development plan. Both are essential to any business. A business plan identifies the goals and the missions of a business, while the marketing plan explains how the business will achieve those goals, if not exceed them. So the first step is create a simple tick sheet. Now, this can be in Excel, this can be in a Word document. This is just a sample of what Berbay does. And you can create the categories however it works for you. So maybe you have less categories. As you can see, there's cold calling, website, email, so you can create it as it works for your business. It's really important. The second step to this is asking the right questions. You know, every time a lead comes through the door, you need to ask them how did you hear about us? Or if they searched online, what did you search for on Google? Or what were those specific keywords? Or who referred you? You may realize that Sam Smith down the street has referred you 5 leads over the last couple of years, and maybe it's time to reconnect with Sam and thank him. So it's really important for you to ask the right questions. 2, it's also important for you to have one person in charge of doing this. So someone's really tracking it and keeping track of everything. Step 3 is analyze the information. This is the most surprising thing about tracking. You will be so shocked to see what you end up, where your leads are coming from and where your revenue is coming from. Again, this is just a sample of something that Berbay has used. So you can see that 27 leads have come through the website and 11 have come through current and former clients. Well, when we really drill down and look at those 27 and that 11 numbers, we may realize that that 11 is really what's turning into clients, so from a lead to a client. So it's very important for you to at least analyze the information once a quarter and make sure that you assign that one person to capture the information. Okay, action item number 2. As many of you know, the relationships that you have with prospects or potential referral sources usually are the best sources of business. So knowing this, the goal is to really create new relationships, reinforce current relationships, and reinvigorate dormant ones. So I'm going to talk about the steps to do this. The first step is to create a list of prospects. Now, you can start with 5 prospects, start with 10 prospects. And by prospects, I mean it could be referral sources, it could be former clients, it could be potential people that could refer you work down the road. Again, it's just about putting a short list together. You can also use LinkedIn to refresh your list if you're struggling to put one together. You know, for example, you may find that people you had connected with in the past have changed companies and there may be an opportunity there. Create a very, very simple list. The second step is customize your approach. One example I've pulled from my LinkedIn profile and from Berbay's website. So let's just say Berbay was on your prospect list, and Megan Braverman was one person that you wanted to reach out to. So look at my LinkedIn profile to see what I'm up to. You may see an organization that they're involved in, and that may be a better way to get in front of them by actually attending one of the events. They may be involved in a similar charity, and that's a way for you to connect with them personally. There's nothing worse than getting a generic phone call or email, hey, how are you? And you having nothing to do. I mean, with the internet today, there's so much information at our fingertips to allow you to customize this approach. So another example, as you can see on the right side and the bottom of the screen, is Berbay's website. I mean, look at the company profile. See what changes and what they're doing, and it may signal that they're growing. You may see that they've hired several people, and you want to say, oh, I see that you've hired a a few new professionals, and is Berbay growing? Or look at their individual LinkedIn company page and see what they're talking about. You know, as you can see, Berbay sponsored a recent organization and award ceremony, and maybe that's something, a talking point that you can bring up. Or, you know, if you're calling someone, you know, if you were calling me today, I'm probably not going to be available because I'm preparing for the webinar. So knowing that information is really what sets you apart. And also another way that's really important to get in front of your prospects is to educate. Provide something of value to them. You know, for example, changes in their industry or issues they face. You know, we provide these webinars to be of value to potential clients or to our clients. So educating is the best way to get in front of people. Step 3 is to break it down. I mean, this is really the most crucial aspect to anything. Again, it's setting realistic goals. So, for example, your goals could be 3 calls per week or 15 minutes per week. I mean, this is, again, the foundation of what any Sales 101 class will teach you. It's that the people who are following up 9 or 10 times later are the ones that close the business. So if you say to someone that you're going to follow up in 2 weeks, then set a calendar reminder. The ones that are on the cusp, sometimes it's just asking the question, what will it take to get your business? I mean, this is an example of what my calendar looks like. You know, it has, you know, 3rd follow-up, 5th follow-up. And then I have on Friday weekly marketing, where I set aside 15 minutes for myself to go through my prospect list and to reach out to them. Now, it's not that you reach out to them each week. Sometimes you say, you know, it's too early and you just postpone it, but at least you're setting realistic goals for yourself. Okay, action item number 3 is spiff up your credentials. So there's many aspects to this. I'll go through a few right now. One is that describing yourself or your brand in a way that not only sells, but that people can understand is a daunting task. You know, you want to make it really easy for the reader or for people that you're communicating with that exactly what you do, your industry, so that when there's a need, you clearly come to mind first. It's a very overlooked aspect of many people's marketing mix because you're so close to it. You probably read your bio and you get it because it's your business, it's your industry. But let's be honest, not everyone understands the multi-facets of real estate or law. So you really have to think from someone else's perspective. Are they going to understand this? I'll give you an example with my business. So most people call us an advertising agency because traditionally that's what firms like us were called, ad agencies. If you think of the series Mad Men, that's a perfect example. But advertising is probably about 5% of what Berbay actually does. That said, we've tweaked our description knowing that people call us an ad agency. So it's about understanding your market. Also, you know, it really increases the recognition and eliminates the confusion. And this is really, again, what sets yourself apart from other people. Your brand is who you are, and it can be difficult for prospective clients to differentiate one firm from the next because we're in such a highly competitive market. So when a prospective client sees and hears and understands your message, it not only reinforces your brand, but it gives you that selling proposition. So the first thing is, okay, that's great. Identify what you're going to say. How do you do this? So I had a client recently tell me that he represented several apparel companies and obtained, you know, multiple published decisions from these cases, but nowhere in their bio or on the firm website did he mention apparel. This is a perfect example. If you have a niche, you need to call it out. It's amazing how many times people say, you know, I specialize in healthcare, but nowhere on the website and nowhere on their bio or LinkedIn profile does it say healthcare. The other thing is, what do you want people to know about you? Think about, okay, if this person is going to read, you know, a page long of my bio, what are the 3 takeaways that you want them to walk away with and remember? That's really important. Think about also what issues do your client face or why you. The other thing to consider is you really need to streamline it. You know, people, and I'll talk about this a little bit later in the webinar, but people do not read, they scan. And I've seen so many bios that I call TBU, true but useless. And it's really like, for example, stay away from the useless information. Like, for example, someone said, we utilize technology. I mean, what does that mean? Do you use a computer? Or we have highly qualified professionals. Again, what does that mean? Does that mean you just went to college? Talk more specifically about why you utilize technology or why you have highly qualified professionals, because you can really, whoever says utilizing technology or we have highly qualified professionals, almost any firm can say that. So try to stay away from the true but useless information. The other thing is you need to persuade, not educate. So consider speaking in visual snapshots. Make the other person see it. Also, of course, consider your audience. So, if you're speaking to a group of real estate professionals, and you don't necessarily need to dumb it down. But if you aren't, then you need to change the way you describe yourself because people don't understand what you do. Step 2 is incorporate it everywhere. For example, I want to point something out on the LinkedIn profile. LinkedIn is a really valuable tool. It not only does it contribute to a higher search engine ranking, but it's a free vehicle to tell your story and expand your network. So as you can see, I've circled a few keywords under my name. This is an overlooked part of LinkedIn. This is really how you're searchable online. And it gives you a very short character limit, but you want to make sure that it's defined very quickly about what you do. So when you're after this webinar, just double check that you have your headlines under your name. So again, you want to incorporate your bio and your story everywhere. So think about your LinkedIn profile, your website bio, maybe your professional organizations. What bio do they have on that website? So revisit all of your profiles and just think about the keywords you're using to describe yourself. Okay, action item number 4, become visible. So the buzzword in our industry right now is content marketing. It's all about putting out informative, valuable, and educational content. The whole reason for this is to increase your visibility and create top-of-mind awareness amongst your prospects so that you become an expert. It's really about creating that body of work so people turn to you as the resource. I was actually initially hesitant to include this in my action items because I think a lot of you might not do it, but at the end of the day, it's so important, and it's probably one of the most important items. I mean, you really create that top-of-mind awareness and visibility that positions you as an expert by pushing out this informative and valuable information. So the more content you disseminate out into the world, the more often your name is going to appear. So you're sort of behind the ball right away. If someone's looking for an attorney or a real estate professional, they'll think, oh, Megan, she's always writing newsletters or blogging, etc. So step 1 is to choose your vehicles. Now, there are an infinite amount of vehicles for you to publish your content. A blog, social media, your website, traditional media like print and newspapers, newsletter. All I'm asking is for you to pick 2. Okay, so out of all that's out there, pick 2 that you're going to focus on. Today I'm just going to talk a little bit about social media and traditional media. So you choose your vehicles, and then step 2 is the idea. So there are 2 real pieces of content that are great to disseminate. One is information that you think would be valuable to your target market. I call this sitting in traffic ideas, when you're just, again, sitting in traffic and you kind of capture these random floating thoughts. The other thing is take a 360 view of your desk. I guarantee that you can pick up a few tidbits around your desk that might be a trend or an interesting question that you were asked or a forecast on what we may expect for the remainder of 2015. Or consider doing 10 tips for clients, like what they, just like, this webinar, it's like 4 action items to market yourself today. Think about ways that you can put together content in bite-sized pieces. And again, this doesn't need to be earth-shattering ideas. For example, what questions have you been asked for the 3rd time this month by different people that you weren't asked before? The other valuable piece of information to disseminate is success stories. I mean, think about a deal or a matter that you just closed. I mean, sharing successes is one of the best ways to get to know a professional better because you understand better what they do. So, and then step 3 is getting it out the door. Again, you need to set realistic goals for yourself. So maybe put someone in charge of writing it and getting out the door, or use your staff, accordingly to help support you. But again, it's about breaking it down. So let's say if you focus on social media and your website, maybe it's one LinkedIn post a week or one website post a week. Break it down so that you can meet those goals. If you try to do everything all at once, you'll never get it done. And then, of course, the whole rinse and repeat concept is to magnify your results. And that's a lot of what Berbay does. For example, when I'm done with this webinar, I'm going to then turn it into an article that I can get published somewhere in one of the trade publications. I'm going to also turn it into a blog post for our website. And I may turn it into maybe a thought piece or a white paper. And I'll then disseminate that on my LinkedIn, my Facebook, etc. So that one thing can go so long if you leverage it, or what I call rinse and repeat. Okay, so I wanted to include 4 marketing tips you can't live without, because these are things that I'm constantly preaching all the time and I just think are really important. The first one is consistency. The marketing race doesn't go to the most talented. It goes to the most steady. So consistently getting emails out or consistently engaging in LinkedIn. Think of it as a diet, okay? You can, if you want to lose weight, let's say you exercise and you eat right, but you only do it for a month. Well, you're not gonna lose weight that way. You have to consistently exercise and eat right. So be consistent about your marketing. The other marketing tip you can't live without is being imperfect. Now, this is a hard one. This is a hard one for me. So many times we don't get things out the door because we're waiting for perfection. And as time passes, it becomes stale. And something that you may have put a lot of time into doesn't get used because you're striving for perfection. Be the best that you can be right now and avoid paralysis. Get it out the door and figure out later how you can make it better for the next time. We see a lot of clients and companies paralyzed by perfection. So, we ourselves are striving to be imperfect. The next thing, which is another big one this year, is decluttering. We are drowning in information but starving for knowledge. And what I say here is a picture is worth 1,000 words. Don't say what you can show, because really words are the least form of communication that people understand. And as I said before, everybody scans and doesn't read. So it's time to really start decluttering your materials. And I'm just going to give you a couple examples. This is don't say what you can show. So instead of listing all of your offices in text format, consider using a map to convey it very quickly. So that's one way of decluttering your materials. The other way is, I just want to show you an example of Berbay. So on the left is Berbay's old advertisement, and on the right is the new one. Again, we try to declutter our materials to make sure that it's very clear. And sometimes the most complex ideas can be conveyed in one single image. So which one can you comprehend faster, the left one or the right one? The last marketing tip you can't live without is listening. So one of the best compliments I ever got was when I was with a prospective client, and we had about an hour-and-a-half meeting, and I really just sat there and listened. And I think I said no more than 20 words. And after we got out, he was like, wow, I feel so much better. I feel like I was in a therapy session. So let your clients do 80% of the talking and you talk for 20%. I mean, we're so interruptive in this world that we live in today, and we don't really listen. And sometimes that's your competitive advantage, is listening. So it really was a great example of why it's so important. So to conclude, it's all about, marketing is really about generating leads and getting the phone to ring. And as I said before, there's no magic bullet, but if you invest in enough marketing channels and you set realistic goals, it's going to be exponentially stronger that prospects will think of you first because of that machine that you've put in place. So I appreciate your time today. I want to let you know that we have another webinar coming up by Account Manager Erica, and she is going to talk about the mid-year recap and reinvigoration on August 20th. So I will ask for questions. Here's my contact information. If you have any questions, I'm happy to answer them after the webinar. We're also going to be sending out a recording and a little handout that's sort of a cheat sheet to help you get back to your desk and set some realistic goals and do some marketing today. Really appreciate everyone listening in. I hope you got a few pearls of wisdom, and I'm more than happy to talk afterwards. Thanks very much.